So in this tutorial, we are going to start looking at the JavaScript code. So this is where things start getting really exciting, because JavaScript is really one of those languages that you can do a heck of a lot of stuff with, and it really does make things quite interesting. JavaScript is one of the most popular programming languages on the web, and there's a very good reason for this. It's very practical and very useful. All right, so what you need to do is you need to create a basic HTML file that you can run in a browser, which obviously has your HTML tags, your head tags. I've just added a title, and this is, of course, a Tutor Me Online JavaScript tutorial. Then I have created a link to a style sheet, which is in this tab over here. This is not necessary, but I just did this for some aesthetic purposes so that the website looks a little bit better. Then we have our body section. I've created a div, which contains a header div, and then it's got a p tag, which has got an ID, and this is the ID that we're going to be referencing. And then we're going to change this text inside of the p element. So this is just to give you a feel for what JavaScript can allow you to do. Let's go over to the website, and I can show you what this looks like. And then we've got the p tag, which reads at this stage my first paragraph. So we're going to create a button, which when you click the button, it will change the text, and then once that works, we'll create another button which will change it back to the original text. Alright, so as you remember in our first video, we said that the JavaScript you'll find inside script tags in your HTML. Just put a / on that. For the closing tag. Then you can put different scripts inside the script tag, and we need to specify what kind of script we're going to be putting in this tag. So we need to say that this is a text / JavaScript script. Then we are going to create a function. Now this is probably a little bit more involved than what we could be doing for our first lesson, but it is still reasonably basic, and it makes things a little bit more. You can do a little bit more with a function. So basically what you're doing is you're creating a container for some action to happen, some JavaScript code that you're placing inside this function. This function will then not execute until you specifically call it. So until something happens that actually calls this function. So the syntax to do that is the word function, followed by the name that you specify. This could be anything, followed by an opening and closing parentheses, and then an opening and closing curly brace. Okay, then within our function, we will say document.getElementById. Now the getElementById function will go and look for an ID within your HTML code, and then it will use that as a reference. So we specifically want to refer to the ID referencing this p tag. So we'll have an opening parenthesis followed by a double quotes. We'll then specify the ID. Then we want to change the HTML within that tag. That we do by using the inner HTML function. So then we'll say this must be equal to something, opening parenthesis followed by double quotes, and then we are going to say the text has been changed. Okay, so the functionality is there. We just need to call it, and then once we invoke this function, it will then actually execute the code. So we're going to create a button. The type is button, and then we will say, then we need to have this function trigger on some event. Now remember in the first tutorial, or in the introduction, we said that JavaScript can can be triggered by certain events that happen within your browser or on the HTML page. So here's our first event, is the onclick event. So that is, of course, when the mouse button clicks on something, and in this case, it will click on this button that we're creating. So within parentheses, we will then specify the function that it needs to call, which is the change text function, followed by the opening and closing parentheses, closing quote. We'll close our button HTML tag, and then let's just say the wording that must go in the button must be change text. Okay, so that would be fine. We'll save it, and then you need to open this within your browser. Remember, mine is already open, so I'll just need to refresh. And there we've got the button. So when we click the button, we'll expect the JavaScript to go and change what's inside the p tag. And there you have it. Once we click the change text button, it then goes and invokes that function, and using the document.getElementById, it references that p tag, and then it changes the text to what we have specified. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another function. I'm just going to copy and paste this. Then I'm just going to say change text back. So change text back to the original. And then we just need to change the text that it must change it back to. And that was my first paragraph. Okay, then we want to create another button. Which will also use the onclick event to trigger the function above. Now in this case, it'll be change text back, opening and closing parentheses, followed by the double quotes, and then we need to close off our HTML element, and then let's just say change text back. Alright, hit save, go over to your browser, let's refresh, and then if we click change text, changes it like it did before, and then we'll say change text back, and it changes it back to what it was. So I think that gives you an idea of events that can trigger certain JavaScript actions, and these actions specifically we placed inside of a function, and functions make things a little bit easier to manage within your JavaScript source code.